Smash has been written and rewritten. We didn't have it out of town, so we had to do all of the work in rehearsal and previews. And our associate, Emily Hubert, told us that she printed 500,000 script pages. So that's how many changes we made. So it's very gratifying to see an audience laughing. And when the show really starts to kick, there's a laugh every line, and it just moves, especially towards the end of the first act. It's really tight comically, so yeah, it's very satisfying. Smash was extremely fun to write. It's a balls-out farcical comedy about the staging of a musical called Bombshell. And I thought, for the sake of the nerdiness of writing, it might be interesting to talk about the first scene, because there's so many principal characters in this show. They all have to be introduced in the first 6 pages, or 6 pages of dialogue, I guess. Each character is introduced with a line or two that represents who they are, their relationship to the other principals, and their sort of stakes in the process of putting up this show. So Nigel is the first, played by Brooks Ashmanskas. He's the director. He comes out and addresses the company after the opening number, which is performed fully costumed and fully lit for the audience at the Imperial, but in the reality of our show, it's in rehearsal, and it's so well done that everybody can see it fully lit and fully costumed. Nigel has this little speech: "Wonderful work, everyone. So great to see the new opener on its feet. It's like I saw the whole thing on stage, fully lit, fully costumed." So that tells the audience what they just saw was in rehearsal. "Very exciting and so informative. Developing an original show can be a bit of a whirlwind with new material every day, so thank you for your patience." Now, he says all that simply to allow Robin Herder time to change and catch her breath, because she's danced her ass off in this opener. She has to change into rehearsal clothes and then appear on stage. So we had to write something to let her breathe. So she's there. He says, "Ivy Lynn, you're glorious. You were born to play Marilyn." So we established that Ivy Lynn is the person you just saw, the actress playing Marilyn Monroe. Ensemble, I threw a lot at you. So he talks about the ensemble. Then he introduces Jerry and Tracy as the writers, and we understand that this is the 7th opening number written for Bombshell, and that we are a month away from our first preview. So in that line of dialogue, we learn how fraught the process has been, and that the timeline of the show. Nigel is critical of the opener, and we show this sort of process of how he's not the best collaborator. Anita enters, Anita being the producer of the show, and she, in one line, she says, "Sorry I'm late, I was raising money," which tells us that she's the producer. You have to understand, this exercise was taking a 15-page scene and cramming it down into 6 pages. There's nothing more boring than exposition, so we attempted to cut out as much as possible in this scene. Scott is a character created so that we could educate the audience about the nature of musicals. For instance, he defines Sitzprobe for the audience, for those people who wouldn't know what that was. He's educated by Anita and by the other people in what a Broadway musical is, because he's never even seen one when he enters this show. Scott has ended up being an extremely beloved and funny character in the show, but he was originally a mechanical thing. So he enters. "This is Scott, he's my new assistant, he'll be observing." He tries to say hello, and she says, "No, observing is not speaking." And that sort of sets up the relationship she has with him throughout the show, where she's basically shutting him up until, well, I won't give away the ending. They establish the idea that this is going to be a celebration of Marilyn Monroe, not an exploitation. And they, in a few lines of dialogue, I don't know how much I should give away here, but in a few lines of dialogue, they paint the picture of what happens in the very last moment of the show, which is absolutely the opposite of what they intended to do. The reason we wrote this show was because we wanted to explore the unintended way that art is created, especially musical theater. You start out wanting to do one thing, and then for a number of reasons you end up with something completely different, and that's what this show is. We established Karen as Ivy's old friend and someone who has understudied her in 4 shows. Karen is a different character than the Karen in the TV series, so it was important to establish that she is somebody who exists understudying a fabulous star and never really getting the chance to perform herself. So her sort of stakes and the premise of that character is established in in one line, basically, which she says to Chloe. She says, "Don't worry, I've understudied Ivy 4 times. She doesn't have a diva bone in her body." That is also the comic premise of the show to a certain extent, because Ivy becomes impossible. And the other character that's introduced in all of this, apart from Karen's husband, Charlie, is Chloe. And Chloe is Nigel's associate. And we see Chloe sort of handling the ensemble and walking Karen through a number in Nigel's absence. And we understand that Chloe is the level-headed workhorse in the show. And she has a surprising role in the story at a later point. So, exposition, horrible. Nobody likes it. I have a son who's 17 now. The first sentence I taught him when he was a baby was "cut the exposition." So we spent an enormous amount of time compressing this as much as possible. And so when you watch it, yeah, you know, you'll see this whip by, but it represents months and months of work. There you go.